News spread quickly through the hotel after Daniel revealed himself as the new owner. Employees whispered in hallways. Some were afraid. Some were curious. Some were worried about losing their jobs. They knew his story now. They knew he had once been rejected at this very place. And many believed one thing: he would take revenge. The current manager barely slept that night. He kept thinking about the meeting, about Daniel's calm voice, about the story he shared. He expected a list of people to be fired the next morning. He expected anger. He expected punishment. But Daniel had something else in mind. The next day, Daniel arrived early again. He walked through the hotel quietly before opening hours. He observed everything carefully: the housekeeping staff preparing rooms, the kitchen workers cutting vegetables for breakfast, the receptionists setting up computers. He noticed tired faces, stressed movements, a lack of motivation. This hotel did not only have financial problems, it had a culture problem. At 10 a.m., Daniel called for a full staff meeting. Not just managers this time. Everyone: housekeeping, security, front desk, kitchen, maintenance. They all gathered in the large ballroom. Some stood at the back nervously. Daniel stepped onto the small stage. He held no microphone at first. He simply looked at them. He saw fear in many eyes, and that made him think deeply. He remembered how fear felt. He remembered standing at the front desk years ago, feeling judged before speaking, feeling unwanted. He picked up the microphone slowly. "I know many of you are afraid," he began softly. "You think I am here to punish people." The room became completely silent. "But I did not buy this hotel for revenge," he continued. "I bought it because I believe it can be better." He paused for a moment. "When I was rejected here years ago, it hurt. It hurt deeply. But that pain helped me grow. It taught me something important. If you allow pain to control you, you become bitter. But if you control pain, you become stronger." The employees listened carefully. Daniel's voice remained calm. "I am not here to destroy anyone's career," he said clearly. "I am here to rebuild this place from the inside." He announced new changes immediately. First, every employee would attend respect and diversity training. Second, there would be a clear rule: no guest would ever be refused unfairly. Third, employees would be treated with fairness as well. No more shouting managers. No more fear-based leadership. The current manager shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Daniel looked directly at him, not with anger, but with seriousness. "This hotel will be known for dignity," Daniel said firmly. "If you cannot treat people with respect, you cannot work here." The message was clear. After the meeting, Daniel did something unexpected. Instead of returning to his office, he removed his jacket and walked to the front desk. He stood beside the reception staff. "Teach me your system," he said calmly. The employees looked shocked. The owner wanted to work beside them. For the next hour, Daniel observed how guests were checked in. He watched how staff handled complaints. He listened to phone calls. He noticed areas that needed improvement. Later, he walked into the kitchen. He spoke with the cooks. He asked about their challenges. He shook hands with cleaning staff. He thanked them for their hard work. Slowly, something began to change. The fear in the hotel started to fade. Employees realized Daniel was not there to scare them. He was there to lead them. That afternoon, Daniel called the current manager into his office privately. The man entered nervously. "I know what you think of me," Daniel said calmly. "You think I came back to remove you." The manager lowered his head. "I admit mistakes were made in the past," he said quietly. Daniel nodded. "Yes, mistakes were made," he replied. "But leadership is not about the past only. It is about what you choose today." Daniel offered him a choice. "You can stay," he said clearly, "but only if you are willing to change, to learn, and to lead with respect. If not, you are free to leave with dignity." The manager looked surprised. He expected anger. He expected humiliation. Instead, he was given responsibility. That moment changed something inside the manager as well. Daniel did not destroy him. He challenged him to grow. Over the next weeks, new policies were implemented. Guest satisfaction slowly improved. Online reviews became more positive. Staff morale increased. The hotel atmosphere felt lighter, more welcoming. One evening, Daniel stood in the lobby watching a family check-in. The receptionist smiled warmly at them. The children laughed happily. The parents looked comfortable. Daniel felt something powerful inside his chest. This was his true victory, not ownership. The morning Daniel chose to reveal himself as the new owner was calm and bright. The sky was clear, and sunlight touched the city buildings softly. But inside Daniel's heart, a quiet storm was moving. Not a storm of anger, not a storm of revenge, but a storm of memories. He stood in front of his large mirror at home, adjusting his tie carefully. His suit was dark blue, clean and sharp. His shoes were polished perfectly. He looked confident, successful, powerful. But behind his calm eyes lived the memory of a young man standing in the rain with a small suitcase. Today, he would walk through the same hotel doors again. But this time, everything would be different. A black car stopped slowly in front of the Grand Horizon Hotel. The building looked the same from the outside. Tall, shining, proud. The golden letters above the entrance reflected the sunlight. People walked in and out, unaware that something important was about to happen. Daniel stepped out of the car slowly. For a second, he simply stood there. He looked at the glass doors. He remembered the cold rain on his face that night. He remembered the heavy feeling in his chest. He took a deep breath. Then he walked forward confidently. The doors opened automatically. Warm air touched his face again, just like years ago. But this time he was not cold. The lobby looked busy. Staff members moved quickly. Guests were checking in and out. The marble floor shined under the lights. The chandelier sparkled above. Everything looked expensive and perfect. But Daniel could see deeper now. He could see small signs of stress on employees' faces. He could feel tension in the air. He walked toward the front desk slowly. The current hotel manager, a middle-aged man with nervous eyes, stood there reviewing papers. When he saw Daniel approaching, he quickly straightened his jacket and smiled politely. "Good morning, sir. Welcome to the Grand Horizon," he said. "How may I assist you today?" Daniel looked at him calmly. There was no anger in his voice when he spoke. "I am here for the staff meeting," he said quietly. The manager looked confused for a second. "Staff meeting, sir?" Before he could ask another question, the hotel's senior executive rushed into the lobby. He walked quickly toward Daniel with a wide, respectful smile. "Mr. Carter," he said loudly, "we are honored to welcome you." The manager's face lost its color. He looked from Daniel to the executive in shock. The lobby suddenly felt silent. Some employees stopped what they were doing. Whispers began spreading softly. Daniel Carter was the new owner. The same hotel that once rejected him was now under his control. Daniel did not smile proudly. He did not look angry either. He simply nodded politely. He walked slowly through the lobby. Each step felt meaningful. He reached the front desk counter, the same spot where he once stood soaking wet and embarrassed. He gently placed his hand on the smooth marble surface. For a brief moment, he closed his eyes. He could almost hear the old manager's voice saying, "We are fully booked." But that voice no longer had power over him. When he opened his eyes, they were calm and steady. "Please gather all department heads in the conference room," Daniel said clearly. "I would like to introduce myself properly." Within minutes, the large conference room was filled. Managers, supervisors, team leaders. Some looked curious. Some looked nervous. Daniel stood at the front of the room. He did not use notes. He did not need them. "My name is Daniel Carter," he began softly. "Years ago, I came to this hotel as a guest." The room became quiet instantly. "I was refused a room," he continued, "not because the hotel was full, but because of how I looked. A few employees lowered their heads. The current manager shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Daniel paused for a second. Then he spoke again. "I am not here for revenge. I am not here to embarrass anyone. I am here because this place deserves better leadership." His voice was steady but strong. No guest should ever feel unwanted. No person should be judged before being known. This hotel will become a place of respect, fairness, and dignity. The employees listened carefully. They did not see anger in him. They saw strength. They saw calm authority. After the meeting ended, Daniel walked back into the lobby alone. Guests continued moving around, unaware of the powerful moment that had just happened upstairs. He looked around slowly. Years ago, he had left this building feeling small and invisible. Today, he stood tall and respected, not because he owned the hotel, but because he had conquered the pain that once tried to control him. As he walked toward the exit, the staff members looked at him differently, not with fear, but with quiet respect. Daniel stepped outside into the sunlight. There was no rain today, only CLE. Success had changed Daniel's life, but it had not changed his heart. He still worked hard every day. He still treated people with respect. And he still remembered that rainy night like it was yesterday. One quiet morning, Daniel sat in his office reading business reports. Sunlight came through the large glass windows. His assistant knocked gently on the door. "There is a new investment report you should see," she said. Daniel nodded and took the file. At first, it looked like any other business document. Numbers, charts, profit losses, future predictions. But then his eyes stopped on one name, the Grand Horizon Hotel. His fingers froze for a second. His heart beat faster. The Grand Horizon. He knew that name very well. It was the same hotel that had refused him years ago. He leaned back slowly in his chair. Memories rushed into his mind. The rain, the cold voice, the glowing golden sign in the dark. He had not visited that street again since that night. He did not need to, but now the hotel name was sitting right in front of him. He began reading carefully. The hotel was in serious financial trouble. Poor management decisions, falling customer reviews, old leadership that failed to adapt to modern times. The owners were desperate to sell before bankruptcy destroyed everything. Daniel felt something strange. Not anger, not happiness, something deeper. Felt like fate knocking on his door. Later that day, he drove past the hotel for the first time in many years. The building still looked tall and beautiful. The golden letters still shined above the entrance. But something was different. The lights were not as bright as before. The parking lot looked half empty. The place did not feel powerful anymore. Daniel parked his car across the street and watched quietly. He saw guests walking in and out. He saw staff members moving quickly. He wondered if any of them remembered him. He wondered if the manager who turned him away still worked there. For a moment, he felt a small spark of revenge in his heart. He imagined walking inside and saying, "Now I decide who gets a room." But that thought disappeared quickly. Daniel was no longer that hurt young man. He had grown beyond revenge. He closed his eyes and asked himself one question. Why do I want this hotel? Was it to prove something? Was it to show power? Or was it something else? He realized the answer slowly. He did not want the hotel because of anger. He wanted it because it represented a broken system. A system that judged people before knowing them. A system that needed change. And Daniel believed he could bring that change. The next morning, he called his lawyer and financial advisor. "I want full details about the Grand Horizon," he said calmly. His team looked surprised. "That property is risky," one advisor warned. "It has bad reviews and internal problems." Daniel listened carefully. Then he replied, "Sometimes the best opportunities hide inside problems." Negotiations began quietly. Daniel did not announce his interest publicly. He moved carefully and patiently. The owners were shocked when they saw the offer amount. It was serious and strong. Within weeks, meetings were arranged. Papers were reviewed. Lawyers discussed terms. Daniel visited the hotel again, this time as a potential buyer. He walked through the lobby slowly. The marble floors were still there. The chandelier still sparkled. But he could see what others missed. Outdated systems, unhappy staff, poor leadership. In one corner, he overheard a guest complaining about rude service. The words hit him deeply. Nothing had truly changed. The building was beautiful, but the heart of the place was weak. As he stood near the front desk, a young receptionist smiled politely at him. "Welcome, sir," she said kindly. For a brief second, Daniel imagined himself standing there years ago, soaking wet and rejected. Life had come full circle. That evening, Daniel made his final decision. He signed the agreement papers. The Grand Horizon Hotel now had a new owner, but the public did not know his identity yet. Daniel chose to keep it private for the moment. He wanted to prepare first. He wanted to enter not with anger, but with vision. As he placed the signed documents on the table, he felt calm. Not excited, not proud, just calm. He understood something powerful. This was not about buying a building. This was about rewriting a story. The story that once began with rejection would now continue with leadership. Daniel looked out of his office window at the city skyline. The same city that once felt cold and unwelcoming now felt like his territory. And somewhere in the distance, the golden sign of the Grand Horizon Hotel continued to shine. Unaware that its future was about to change forever, the opportunity had arrived. And Daniel was ready. Neil was no longer the young man who walked into the city with one suitcase. He had grown stronger, wiser, and more confident, but he never forgot where he started. Every morning he woke up before sunrise. While the city was still quiet, he was already reading reports and planning his day. His small apartment was simple. No expensive furniture, no luxury decorations. Just a desk, a laptop, and stacks of books about business and leadership. Daniel believed something important. Success was not magic. It was built slowly, day by day. At work, he became known as the man who never gave up. When others said something was impossible, Daniel asked, "How can we make it possible?" When projects failed, he stayed late to fix them. When clients were angry, he stayed calm and listened carefully. His boss began to notice him. Soon he was promoted to team leader. Some coworkers were happy for him. Others were jealous. A few whispered that he was lucky, but Daniel knew the truth. Luck had nothing to do with it. He had paid for every step with effort and sacrifice. Still, something inside him wanted more. He did not just want to work for someone else forever. He wanted to build something of his own. One evening, after a long day at the office, Daniel sat alone at his desk. He stared at a blank notebook page. Then he wrote one sentence: "Start your own company." The idea scared him. He did not come from a rich family. He did not have powerful connections. He only had savings from years of careful budgeting. But he also had something stronger than money. He had belief. For months, he studied business models and market trends. He noticed a problem many companies were facing. Small businesses struggled to get financial advice and support. They were ignored by big firms. Daniel understood how it felt to be ignored. He decided to create a company that would help them. He resigned from his stable job. Many people thought he was crazy. "You are throwing away security," one colleague told him. But Daniel smiled calmly. Security had never protected him from rejection before. He rented a tiny office space in an old building. The paint on the walls was fading. The furniture was secondhand. The office had only one window. But to Daniel, it looked like opportunity. At first, business was slow. Very slow. Some days, no clients called. Some weeks, he worried about paying rent. He doubted himself at night. He wondered if he had made a mistake. But every time fear tried to win, he remembered the hotel lobby. He remembered standing in the rain. He remembered the feeling of being invisible. That memory gave him strength. He promised himself that he would never go back to that feeling again. Slowly, things began to change. One small business owner trusted him. Daniel worked day and night to help that client succeed. The client was grateful and recommended him to others. Word started spreading. Daniel was honest. He was hardworking. He treated every client with respect, no matter how small their business was. Within 2 years, his company grew bigger than he imagined. He hired his first employee, then 3 more, then 10. The small office became too crowded. He moved into a larger building downtown. The sign outside now carried his company name in bold letters. People who once ignored him now asked for meetings. Investors wanted to partner with him. Banks that had once rejected his loan applications now offered support. Daniel remained humble. He never bragged. He never forgot the pain that shaped him. One afternoon, he attended a business conference in a luxury hotel. As he stepped inside the grand lobby, a strange feeling hit him. The bright lights, the marble floors, the rich decorations. It reminded him of something. It reminded him of that rainy night years ago. He paused for a moment. He realized something powerful. He no longer felt small in places like this. He no longer felt like he did not belong. He had earned his place. He had built it with his own hands. Later that evening, he stood near a large window overlooking the city skyline. The city lights sparkled beautifully. Daniel looked down at the busy streets. Somewhere out there, someone might be standing in the rain like he once did, feeling rejected, feeling invisible. And for the first time, Daniel understood something clearly. His success was not only about money or power. It was about proving that rejection could not define a person's future. He had risen step by step, not with anger, not with revenge, but with discipline, patience, and courage. And deep inside, he knew his journey was not finished yet. Something bigger was waiting for him, something connected to his past, something that would test not only his success but his heart. The man who was once turned away in the rain was now rising higher than anyone expected, and the world was about to notice. Daniel did not sleep that night. After leaving the hotel, he walked for almost an hour in the rain. His shoes were wet, and his body was shaking from the cold. Finally, he found a small bus station that was open all night. It was not clean or comfortable, but at least it was dry. A few travelers were sleeping on the benches. An old television played quietly in the corner. Daniel sat down and placed his suitcase beside him. For a moment, he just stared at the floor. The memory of the hotel manager's cold voice played again and again in his mind. "We are fully booked." He could still see the smile that returned when the white couple walked in. It felt like someone had pushed a knife slowly into his pride. Daniel leaned forward and covered his face with his hands. He had worked so hard to reach this city. He had saved money for months. He had prepared for the interview carefully. And yet, in just 1 minute, he was made to feel small and unwanted. A tear rolled down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away, not because he was ashamed of crying, but because he did not want pain to control him. Around 3 a.m., he opened his suitcase and took out his folder. Inside were copies of his resume, certificates, and notes. He looked at them carefully. "These papers show who I am," he whispered to himself. "No one can take that away." Instead of sleeping, Daniel began reading his notes again. He practiced answers to interview questions quietly. He imagined sitting in the office chair with confidence. He imagined shaking hands with the company director. Outside, the rain finally stopped. Morning slowly arrived. The sky turned light gray. Daniel walked into a public restroom nearby and washed his face. He fixed his tie. He cleaned his shoes as best as he could with tissue paper. When he looked at himself in the mirror, he saw tired eyes. But he also saw determination. "You are not a victim," he said softly to his reflection. "You are a fighter." The company office was 20 minutes away. As he walked there, people rushed past him on the busy morning streets. No one knew what had happened to him the night before. No one knew the promise he had made under that glowing hotel sign. When Daniel entered the company building, his heart was beating fast. The office was modern and professional. Everything looked expensive and serious. For a second, He felt the same small feeling he had felt in the hotel lobby. But this time, he did not allow it to grow. He straightened his back and walked confidently to the receptionist. He introduced himself clearly and politely. Soon, he was called into the interview room. 3 people were sitting at a large table. They asked him about his education, his experience, and his goals. At first, his voice was slightly nervous. But as he continued speaking, something changed. He spoke honestly about his struggles. He spoke about working 2 jobs while studying. He spoke about his dream to build something meaningful in life. The interviewers listened carefully. One of them leaned forward and said, "Why do you want to succeed so badly?" Daniel paused for a moment. He thought about the rain, the hotel, the cold voice. Then he answered calmly, "Because I want to prove that no one has the right to limit another person's future." The room became quiet. The interviewers exchanged looks. They saw something different in him. Not just skill, not just education, but fire. A few days later, Daniel received a phone call. He got the job. When he heard the news, he did not shout or celebrate loudly. He simply closed his eyes and smiled softly. That small victory meant more than anyone could understand. The job was not perfect. The salary was not huge, but it was a door, and Daniel had stepped through it by himself. Over the next few years, Daniel worked harder than everyone else. He arrived early and left late. He learned about finance, business strategy, and leadership. He read books at night instead of watching television. He saved every extra dollar. Sometimes people underestimated him. Sometimes they doubted his ideas. But every time someone tried to make him feel small, he remembered that rainy night. The pain did not disappear. It changed. It became motivation. It became strength. It became a silent engine pushing him forward. Daniel did not talk about revenge. He did not complain about unfairness. Instead, he built himself quietly, brick by brick, skill by skill, year by year. And deep inside his heart, the promise he made under that hotel sign was still alive. He did not know exactly how the future would unfold. But one thing was certain. The man who was turned away in the rain was not the same man anymore. He was growing into someone powerful. And one day the world would see it. It was a cold and rainy night when Daniel Carter arrived in the city. The sky was dark, and heavy rain was falling without stopping. The streets looked shiny under the street lights, and the wind felt sharp against his face. Daniel stood on the sidewalk holding one small black suitcase. He looked tired, but there was hope in his eyes. This city was his chance for a new beginning. He had an important job interview the next morning. If everything went well, his life could finally change. In front of him stood a tall and beautiful hotel. The building had bright golden lights, large glass doors, and a shining name sign above the entrance. People inside were laughing, talking, and enjoying their evening. Daniel took a deep breath and walked toward the door. As he stepped inside, the warmth of the lobby touched his cold skin. The floor was made of smooth marble. A huge crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, sparkling like diamonds. Soft music played in the background. Everything looked rich, clean, and perfect. Daniel felt small for a moment, but he reminded himself why he was there. He walked to the front desk and gave a polite smile. "Good evening," he said softly. "I would like a room for one night." The man behind the desk looked up slowly. His smile was polite at first, but it disappeared quickly. His eyes moved from Daniel's face to his simple clothes, then to his suitcase. For a few seconds, he said nothing. Then he cleared his throat. "I'm sorry," the manager said in a cold voice. "We are fully booked tonight." Daniel felt confused. That could not be true. Just 1 hour ago, he had checked online, and rooms were still available. He tried to stay calm. "Are you sure?" Daniel asked politely. "I saw available rooms on your website." The manager's face became serious. "I said we are fully booked," he repeated. At that moment, a well-dressed white couple walked into the hotel. Laughing and holding hands, they walked up to the desk beside Daniel. The manager's face suddenly changed. His smile returned, bright and welcoming. "Good evening," he said warmly. "How may I help you?" The man from the couple asked if there were any rooms available. "Of course," the manager replied quickly. "We have several rooms available." Daniel stood frozen. His heart began to beat faster. He understood what was happening. It was not about the rooms. It was not about space. It was about him, about the color of his skin, about how the manager saw him. A heavy silence filled his chest. He wanted to say something. He wanted to argue, but the words did not come out. Instead, he slowly picked up his suitcase. The couple avoided looking at him. The manager ignored him completely. Daniel walked back toward the glass doors. Each step felt heavier than the last. As he stepped outside, the rain hit his face again. But this time it felt colder. The city lights that once looked beautiful now seemed distant and cruel. Cars passed by without stopping. People hurried down the sidewalk without noticing him. He stood there for a few seconds under the hotel sign. Water ran down his jacket. His shoes were soaked. But the pain inside him was stronger than the cold rain. He felt embarrassed. He felt angry. He felt invisible. For a moment, he wondered if he should give up and return home. Maybe this city was not meant for him. Maybe dreams like his were too big. But then he remembered his mother's words. "Do not let anyone decide your value," she used to say. "You are stronger than you think." Daniel closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He looked up at the glowing hotel sign one more time. The golden letters shined proudly in the dark night. One day, he whispered quietly to himself. One day things will be different. He did not know how. He did not know when. But in that painful moment, something changed inside him. The rejection that could have broken him became a small fire in his heart. And that fire would not go out. Daniel turned away from the hotel and began walking down the wet street. The rain continued to fall, but this time he was not walking in shame. He was walking with a silent promise, and that promise would change everything.